This week on Back to the Movies, we're talking Ocean's 13.
You think this is funny?
Well, Terry, it sure as shit ain't sad.
We're going back to the movies. 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 Hell.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Back to the Movies, the silver screen time machine where my co-hosts and I travel back to a specific year of cinema history and explore what made it special. This season, we're going back to 2007. I'm your host, Ben, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Nat McGee. Nat, how's it going?
It's going good, man.
I fucked up your edits. I was on autopilot.
That's okay. We changed the opening a little bit, but Ben just ignored it. I even asked him beforehand, I was like, you're cool with these, right? I didn't want to impose. And he said yes, but then he just changed it. He's a total sociopath.
I learned my lines already.
He's just like Pacino in this movie.
You can't touch my words, man. Yeah. You gotta leave him alone.
Psycho freak.
How you doing, Nat? How's it going?
I'm doing well. I'm enjoying the beginnings of summer here and enjoying my 2-week vaccination anniversary. I went out to a nice dinner yesterday. Inside, I have no fear. I'm riding the waves.
Unmasked?
Yeah, walked in with a mask on, but then
we're cursing, man.
Took the mask off pretty quickly. Even walked from the bar to the table without the mask.
Wow.
Because I was like, it's my right. It's my right. I would have put my mask on if it hadn't been a 3-step walk.
Good. That's considerate.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm going to keep masking in basically every social situation. How about you, Ben? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's been very hot here the last couple of days. I hate summer. We talked about that last week, and now I'm seeing evidence to my point. I don't like to be uncomfortable all the time.
Yeah, well, it's nice to sit on the porch and sip a lemonade, and you got to work for feeling good.
You just a genteel Sunday afternoon in Nat's very fine Southern accommodation.
Yeah,
sitting on the porch.
Anyway,
sipping a mint julep.
I was thinking, I'm going to stop that now. I was thinking about how, unsuited the Ocean's team and movies would be for, Corona Land. Can you imagine, Danny in a N95? That would suck. It would just be really sad for them.
They're all about interpersonal communication, about confidence. It's a con game.
And just, living in a cool world. They love living in a good, fun world, and there's none of that anymore.
2020 was not a cool enough time for them.
They probably went into a cave and froze deep below the earth while 2020 and 2021 are happening. So hopefully they can be re-earthed soon. But yeah, we're talking about Ocean's 13 today. Another third movie in a franchise born of the 2000s. It's crazy how many of these we're covering. I think this is the last big one.
It should be.
And this one's kind of a confluence of a lot of the other movies because it has Damon from Bourne Ultimatum. It has some stars from movies that we've yet to cover. But then it's also got stars from movies that we covered in our 1990 season. It's got Julia from Pretty Woman and Andy from Godfather and Al from Godfather. This is the nexus here with Ocean's 13, so it's going to be a fun talk.
I agree.
Great.
I don't have a good follow-up.
Okay.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I was particularly noticing the Andy Garcia of it all. I don't know, something about that, it's been 17 years between season 1 and season 2, and he went from being the ostensible lead or the newly anointed heir apparent to the Godfather throne.
Yeah.
To playing the 9th biggest character in a sequel. Andy Garcia's career, I don't think worked out as well as I would have predicted if I had seen Godfather 3 in 1990 and loved it as much as I do currently.
Yeah, it's a very far fall. It's it kind of, you'd think maybe he'd be one of the guys, but instead he's the buffoonish casino owner.
And he's had obviously great performances. He's a great actor, but it's true that he is separate. He is not Clooney.
No.
He is not
He's
Pitt.
not even Damon.
He's not Damon.
Yeah.
Not even Damon. Damon is a big draw.
But not in these movies, he's a joke. Anyway, we'll get to all of this. We're giving you a little tease of what's to come in this episode. We're basically just going to be talking about these Oceans guys as if they're baseball players. Like, I feel like that's how this is going to get approached.
Is this episode going to be a little non-linear too? Are we going to bounce around in time a little bit?
Maybe. Yeah. I also forgot to mention Bernie Mac from Transformers.
Bernie Mac from
we're
Transformers.
all
That's another
here.
one. Oh, and what's his name from Waitress?
Livingston Dell.
Livingston
Yeah.
Dell.
Oh my God. If you're new to the podcast, we hope you enjoy listening, and we'd love for both new and old listeners to please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We are trying to grow the podcast, and it really helps when you do that. You can also follow us at BttM Pod on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and you can email us, bttmpod@gmail.com. So please reach out if you have any comments or questions about the episode or want us to cover a certain movie. We'll do anything.
We really appreciate hearing from you.
Yeah. Ben, did you watch anything else other than Ocean's 13 this week before we get into that discussion?
I watched Ocean's 11. I decided to skip 12 because I did a rewatch within the last calendar year, and I don't like that movie very much. So thought I wouldn't put myself through it. And I also got a chance to check out Armando Iannucci's 2020 film, The Personal History of David Copperfield.
Yeah. With Dev Patel, yeah?
With Dev Patel, with Hugh Laurie, with Ben Whishaw of Perfume fame.
Nice.
I was pretty disappointed in the film. I really like Iannucci's movies. I like In the Loop. I love Death of Stalin. And I thought that this movie had a lot going for it, but kind of failed to coalesce. And you know what? I wrote a review about it on Letterboxd.
Hey,
I'm back!
He's back! Daniel Day-Lewis emerges from the carpentry shed to write a review. Congrats, Ben. We'll see you in 2.5 years.
Yep. I'll be back again. How about you? You watch anything good?
I went on a little Blu-ray buying spree, and I watched my new Blu-ray of Wet Hot American Summer because summer's beginning, and I just had to.
I think I'm gonna watch that one this year.
Oh my God, it's so good. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It got me on a real David Wayne kick. Like, I'm kind of obsessed with David Wayne now, and just how he's like such a voice in American cinema, but like super understated. Like, he's kind of just been changing comedy in his own little way for the last 25, 30 years. And what I found out that's cool about David Wayne is that in quarantine, he's become quite the TikTok creator. He makes all these cool TikToks about filmmaking that are really insightful and interesting. So check out David Wayne. He's on Instagram too, but he had like a really cool TikTok, like 1.5 minute video all about like how much work went into like one scene from the movie Role Models, and like how all the various stages of production affected what ultimately became the movie. And he goes really in depth. He also does like how he accomplished stunt videos. So super interesting. Check him out.
Yeah, I love that stuff. That sounds right up my alley. But I'd have to engage with TikTok.
You'd have to engage
the
with
dystopian nightmare technology.
You'd have to engage with the rest of the world that is slowly passing you by. It is true, but you can still jump on the caboose, man. You can still jump on.
Hey, I watched one other thing this week I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
Did you see the trailer for Edgar Wright's new movie, Last Night in Soho?
I did.
Watching that trailer, as it gets to the end and we start to see all of the crazy horror visuals, did you get strong Don't vibes? Don't, the trailer Edgar Wright directed from Grindhouse? The 60s setting, just the fast cuts of crazy, inexplicable horror imagery. I couldn't believe how much it reminded me of his work in that. And I wanted to bring it up since we talked about it on the podcast.
Yeah, I didn't make that connection really, but what blew me away about that trailer was like it sold the idea of what's going on purely visually. Like it's a very high concept movie, and like the trailer just did such a good job of like informing us what is going to happen in that movie and like what the big high concept, whatever it is, science fiction, magic, whatever's going on there, like they made it very understandable without saying a word, without saying anything. It was all done through visuals, which was super cool. Very, very impressive.
Exciting trailer. I'm excited to see that film. Edgar Wright doing good work.
Yeah.
As we've talked about this season.
Hell yeah. So let's talk about a little bit of Oceans. Oh my God.
Let's get some cool, funky, like jazz on in the background. Some post bop.
Yeah, we are
a 60s
definitely
pop song by Frank Sinatra.
You and I are definitely never making the crew. The best we could do is maybe be the twins.
I was gonna say, I think I could be a Casey Affleck / Scott Conn. I think I could rap, or a Livingston Dell. That's kind of my energy.
You could probably be a Scott Conn. Yeah, you're not as pushy though as he is. I don't know. I wouldn't fit in at all. I'd be terrible. Like I told you, I'm really bad at conning people and spying, so I'd be terrible at it. Dude, I am a big old fan of the first Ocean's movie. Like, from when it came out, I was into it. One of my favorites from like early middle school. Like, that was what I thought was like one of the coolest movies ever. I listened to the soundtrack a lot, and the soundtrack actually has snippets of dialogue from the movie, so I actually have snippets of dialogue from the movie memorized because I've listened to that soundtrack so much. And yeah, I just love it. I love that shit. It's so good. I'm a big fan of Vegas in that specific era. It's like newly revitalized Vegas, but it hasn't gone like full on adult EDM. Like it kind of has matured from that at this point. This is back in the 90s when it was like that, you know, they're making these huge resorts that have like very specific themes that are so childish. And I feel like Vegas is kind of over that now. It's way more about like just being luxurious and having vague themes.
Well, this movie captures that so well when they cut to Clooney and Pitt outside the Bellagio, and it looks so quaint and old fashioned,
right,
compared to this fake casino, the bank,
that
they've made up. And it really does take you back where you're like, wow, in 2001, the Bellagio was the height of sophistication.
Right.
It was the finest casino on the strip. And now it's old hat.
Yeah. And even like the bank hotel is like more wacky than anything that pops up on the strip now. Like everything, the thing about the strip that I've kind of learned now is that like, they just want you to stay in the one casino. So they have like 6 clubs and they have like 12 restaurants, and they have to be really basic now. Like they can't take a big swing like they would with like Excalibur, like, which is so insane that that's a multi-million-dollar project. So
Circus.
I love that Ocean's first movie so much.
So how do you feel about 13?
It's kind of fun, but it's also totally unnecessary. I don't really love what they did with like this whole fake Rat Pack situation in Ocean's 13, where I don't know, like the first movie, it's kind of quiet and earnest with its callbacks to like the Frank Sinatra era. It's there, but it's also like fully embracing the new millennium and like with all of its glory and faults. And this movie is like, it's like the Pirates 3 of Ocean's 11. They all of a sudden have like the Pirates code, where if you shook Sinatra's hand,
shake Sinatra's hand,
and like they can't use guns, and I'm like, the first movie was not like this. There wasn't like a secret thieves guild. It was just like Danny knew a bunch of guys that could do this crazy heist, but now it's turned into this ridiculous premise of like the thieves code, and it's just so unnecessary.
Yeah, the great example of that is like in the first movie, Danny is a con man with a small collection of people that he knows who's been arrested. In this movie, he is like Vegas's biggest underground celebrity. Literally everyone knows who he is.
Yeah.
He is the biggest shit on the playground.
Yeah, we'll get into it more like as we talk about the movie, but like the way that Danny is utilized in this movie is really bad. He's like not a character in the movie. It's very strange. No. But with that said, it's a great looking movie, and like if it has to exist, I'll accept this.
Yeah,
it's not as bad as it could be, and it's still a fun 2 hours. It's a sequel. It's a total sequel. It's completely unnecessary. No one really cares. They're just doing it to do it, and it's there now. There's 2 hours more of Oceans, so fuck it.
The cast is doing it because they get to all hang out together. And they like doing that, right? You know, it's like a little vacation with their friends. It's like the Adam Sandler movies, right? Where his whole philosophy is like, I don't really care how good the movie is, as long as it makes enough money that I can keep going on these paid vacations with all of my friends. That's sort of what this feels like, where I think Soderbergh has some ideas at play, but pretty much everyone else there is just there for the good time and nothing else.
I remember when 12 was being made, there were like stories in the press that were just about Clooney and Brad Pitt like partying in Europe. It was like the Ocean's 12 shoot is the coolest Hollywood cadre in the world right now. Like while they were shooting it, it was making news that they were just having a blast shooting that movie.
And that's kind of what they were trying to sell it on, right? Is this like, this is the Rat Pack reincarnated. Clooney is Sinatra. He is that cool.
Yeah. And he's not. Like, you're not that cool.
He's a different guy.
No one will ever, if you're involved in like a corporate ass movie called Ocean's 11 that's like a remake of another, like you'll just never, you're not Frank Sinatra. That era is gone. Like, you need to come up with a new kind of cool.
Right. Which is what the first movie does so well. I'm with you. I love Ocean's 11. I literally, the last movie I made in high school before going to film school was just a 15-minute homage to Ocean's 11. I remember seeing 12 in theaters when I was 14 years old and it going way over my head. Like, I just couldn't grapple with what that movie was trying to do.
Yeah.
I've seen it several times since. You know, I don't think it's a bad movie. I think it is unbearably smug. It feels like a movie where it's trying to sell itself on how big the parties Clooney and Pitt threw offset. Like, that movie is so enamored with its coolness that I can't even, like, it's difficult to get through for me sometimes.
And it's very like Hollywood meta. Like, there's the famous
very
Julia Roberts thing, which is also creative and fun, but the fact that it's like a bunch of fucking millionaire celebrities and not, like, you're not Godard, Steven Soderbergh. Like, you're making a major corporate movie with the most famous A-list celebrities in the world. Like, it's not that cute when you do this fun stuff. It's just kind of like annoying.
It's just kind of, you can do it, you can hit it and get off it. You could do it as a throwaway joke. But if you make like multiple scenes that are about how Tess looks like Julia Roberts, then I'm starting to check out.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, okay, we get it.
But you know what? Again, it's like, I'm not unhappy they exist. It's just like, not for me. Like, it's not, I'll always just go back to the first one.
The thing about the first film is it is so effortless. I mean, that's like the key component of cool, right? Is lack of caring, is this kind of like avant-garde, but disinterested attitude that one carries off with ease. That movie can make me laugh with a single gesture or a small expression on George Clooney's face. And by the time they get to this one, where they're trying to replicate what must have been alchemy, you know, what was just like a happenstance, it always becomes too much. The example for me is the Clooney's eye roll when Benedict says, "I was born ready." In the first movie, that would have just been a deadpan stare. And in this one, it is the biggest fucking eye roll I have ever seen. And it doesn't play. It doesn't play the same way.
I didn't hate that eye roll. It was kind of a bad eye roll, though. He really mugs it up. He should have just done like a little eye roll.
So, that was all over the trailers, too, I remember.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the story of Ocean's 11. Or Ocean's 13.
We're here to talk about 13, not 11.
Yeah, I want to talk about 11 way more, but we're going to talk about 13.
We'll do 2001 sometime. 2001's a good year.
So, this story section is going to be called, I'm going to pull a Kubrick, but with a hint of Godard. And maybe shake it up with a little bit of Kurosawa. You know, like in Oceans when they like save celebrities.
Is that the name of the story minute, what you just said?
Yeah, that's the name of the story minute.
Great. That definitely played. Everybody was on board for that joke. It was really good.
Well, if you've seen Oceans, maybe. I don't know. What now I'm Linus?
I see. You're talking about like when they name
their little
cons.
schemes. Yeah.
You know, when they're like, he's going to get the Susan B. Anthony in the airport.
Yeah, exactly.
But you've decided to name your cons after famous film directors.
Yeah, storytellers, because I'm telling a story.
But you only chose film directors.
You know, Ben, if you were like
and you
not
chose visual
you,
ones,
and if you were Danny
like
Ocean, you just would have said, that was great. And you would have let me look like an idiot. But instead, you're dragging it out. So just...
I've been like, oh, a Kurosawa. We need 3 guys for a Kurosawa if we're going to pull that off.
See?
Right.
Yes. Oh, man. Instead, you're a Virgil. God damn you.
All right.
All right.
Take it away with your. I can't even repeat what you called this.
It's a Lucas with a little bit of Lumet and a little sprinkling of Linklater. Okay.
A double Linklater at the
and
end.
maybe a little Dickens in there. A double Linklater
Great.
with a Dickens to finish. Danny Ocean meets up with Ruben, his bankroller, who has recently suffered a heart attack at the hands of Al Pacino, who has betrayed Ruben, left him with nothing. So Danny has to get Ruben out of his coma. And to do that, he reassembles the team of the Ocean's dudes so that they can pull a big old fast one on Al Pacino and ruin his brand new casino that he's opening. They're going to rig all the tables. They're going to get him to lose his hotel award. They're going to do all these hijinks to ruin his shit. And they plan it. They come across some kinks along the way. But in the end, they fuck over Al Pacino, steal his diamonds, ruin the hotel award, and all walk away happy, and Ruben survives and smiles. And that's the end of Ocean's 13. Oh, and Julia Roberts isn't there. The end. That's a very important distinction.
Nice. You got through it in under a minute, and then you were just stalling.
Yeah, I was, I told you I was going to do a Godard and maybe with
You're
a
right.
little bit of a Lucas, but then I did the double whammy. Anyway, that's Ocean's.
The double Linklater where it trails off at the end.
It's really a sequel, like we mentioned before. It just, it's like, if you liked Ocean's 11, you'll love Ocean's 13.
The movie positions itself as sort of a return to Ocean's 11.
Yeah.
Because 12 was more avant-garde. 12 was out there. 12 left Vegas. 12 was less heist-oriented. It wasn't about gambling or casinos.
It reminds me of the Hangover trilogy, which also was in Vegas, and then they decided to go to Thailand in the second one, and then they were like, everyone hated that. Let's just go back to Vegas. If you have a Vegas trilogy, don't leave Vegas in the middle. That's what it's all about. That's what people want. So let's talk about
Book Report Corner.
Ben's Book Report Corner on the Ocean's trilogy.
We got a lot of people to talk about with the cavalcade of stars in this film. So I'll keep it tight. I just want to talk about Steven Soderbergh. Soderbergh is one of the most exciting directors that we will get to talk about. And I look forward to hopefully covering other films that he made in his other seasons, because he's just this really unique figure in American cinema. We talked about him a lot in our 1990 season, sort of tangentially, because he was at the vanguard of the American independent cinema movement in that era. His debut feature film, Sex, Lies, and Videotape, is the start of the Sundance phenomenon in 1989.
Yeah, he's a real indie kid.
He's an indie kid who also found mainstream success. So after spending the 90s doing a bunch of independent films, he then started to hit it big with a whole series of really great attention-grabbing films. Out of Sight in 98, The Limey in 99, Aaron Brockovich and Traffic both in 2000. He wins Best Director for Traffic that year, and then Ocean's 11 in 2001.
Pretty good run there.
And that sort of sets him up for this trajectory. And in the 2000s, he bounces back and forth between making smaller independent films and continuing the Ocean's trilogy.
Right. Yeah, I like Soderbergh a lot. I want to watch more of his movies that I've kind of missed out on over the years, because
He's made so many, too.
he's made a lot. He's a busy guy.
I have never seen a Soderbergh film I didn't like. I've seen some that I'm like a little lukewarm on, like Ocean's 12, and I'm not wild about his Solaris remake, but he is too interesting a filmmaker to make an outright bad movie.
Have you watched one of his iPhone movies?
I have not, although I really want to. I was going to talk about that. He's this pioneering digital filmmaker. He's literally shot multiple feature-length theatrically released films on iPhones. That's crazy.
Yeah, with good lenses, though.
Yeah, well, that's critical. But still, I mean, he's making the argument about how filmmaking can be made more democratic, how it can be made more accessible.
Yeah.
He's one of these guys, too, who's just doing everything on his movies. He often will write them himself, shoot them himself. He shoots Ocean's 13. He's the DP on this film. Edit them himself, compose the music or arrange the music. I was looking at his IMDb, and there was one credit that jumped out at me that I wanted to mention. In the height of all of this prestige and wearing all these hats, he inexplicably was the second unit director on the first Hunger Games movie.
Oh, that's weird.
The guy's just all over the place. He does everything.
I wonder if he was doing somebody a favor or something. That's very strange. He probably just did it for fun, like as an exercise.
It could have been for fun. Yeah, it could have been like, hey, I want to test my chops at Hollywood action filmmaking.
Yeah.
Let me be your second unit director. And if Steven Soderbergh wants to be my second unit director, I'm not saying no.
So I wanted to play a quick game that I think will be fun, since the world has insisted on there being a Ocean's extended universe, more or less, because they made Ocean's 8 with like Sandra Bullock playing Clooney's sister or something. So I wanted to do a game of some actors from other Soderbergh movies that should have been either crew members, like of Ocean's crew, or villains in the Ocean's franchise. I came up with a couple that I would have liked to have seen.
I got one right off the top of my head.
Who?
Can I go?
Yeah.
Benicio del Toro.
He's my first one. He would have been so good.
He should be playing like the Eddie Izzard role in this movie.
Yeah. Eddie Izzard is no good. I love Eddie Izzard, but in these movies, he's not utilized properly.
Not doing anything.
Yeah, Benicio would have been so good, and he'd fit right in because he's been in a lot of Soderbergh movies.
And he can do cool.
Oh,
so
yeah.
He doesn't always do it, but he can rock cool.
Or he could be like one of the crazy people. He could do anything. I also have James Spader from Sex, Lies, and Videotape. I feel like he would have fit right in.
That would be good.
Maybe as a villain, maybe as a weirder crew member. I don't know. Luis Guzman, who's been in a lot of Soderbergh movies, he'd also fit right in.
Limey.
Meryl Streep has been a Soderbergh actor in a couple of the newer movies that he's done for Netflix, and I feel like she could have been a great villain or love interest or someone to match Danny's panache.
What about J-Lo? Bring back that out of sight chemistry.
J-Lo could have been good. And the last one, and this might be the one I want the most, maybe besides Benicio, would be an Ocean's movie featuring Michael Douglas. Come on!
Yeah, he playing the ruthless son of a bitch businessman they're up against.
Yeah.
It's not like cool mobsters anymore running Vegas. It's like some Wall Street douchebag
it would be
played
so
by Michael
good.
Douglas.
It would be so good. Underrated Behind the Candelabra. Really good Soderbergh movie that was big when it came out for like the week because it was on TV, but it's kind of been
HBO
forgotten a little bit, and it's really, really good. Anyway, that's my recast. Let's get into Ocean's 13.
Ba, 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 ba.
Slick opening credits with the cool.
The
I thought my
logo?
HDMI cable was broken. There's like really cool colors flashing all over the screen, and it's really like primary colors, and it looks really trippy.
And the music cue over the Warner Brothers logo. I will say, very interesting contrast from Ocean's 11, which has sounds of prison.
Yeah.
And no music.
Yeah.
Very somber beginning.
That's what I'm saying though. Like Ocean's 11, it seems like it's mostly shot on location. It has its foot in the real world. And I know a lot of ridiculous things happen in that movie, but like it takes place at a real casino. It utilizes a lot of real locations. They've shifted from like making this pseudo real slick crime caper to now it's just like, we are the Rat Pack reborn. We are the coolest mofos in the world. Like, and we're just going to lean heavily into that. And yeah, it just doesn't hit you as well. It's like a little bit false, I think.
How do you feel about the cold open with Brad Pitt going to crack the safe?
That was kind of funny when he just gets the phone call and has to walk away. I kind of like that.
walks
I also
away.
like that he was in a KB Toys, which is like a bygone toy store.
That's the detail I love, is that the toy store is next to the bank or wherever the safe is. So he rappels down through the toy store, then walks through the blown out wall to the safe.
But then the movie goes into this whole thing where Ruben is in a coma, and there's a flashback as to why he's in a coma. And it's because he trusted Willie Bank, played by Al Pacino, on this deal for a new casino. And Willie Bank just like utterly screws him over.
Basically says, you will take pennies on the dollar and give up your stake in ownership, or I will literally throw you off this building where we are talking right now.
Yeah. Very Vegas.
How do we feel about Pacino in this movie? Pacino's the big new addition. He's, I guess, the 13 of Ocean's 13.
Yeah, I couldn't believe how much he was in the movie. I forgot that he actually filmed a lot of scenes for this movie. For some reason, I remembered it as like, oh, he's only in like 4 scenes. But he's like almost the star of this movie.
Yeah, he's in it more than I would say any other individual person is.
It's crazy. So yeah, I thought he did a pretty good job. You know, you get the sense that he's a really powerful, rich guy and that he always gets what he wants. And I think he does a pretty good job at like conveying that.
This megalomania thing.
The script isn't great, but the way he carries himself, the way he looks, I think is really good.
I really like this performance. I think it's really good. I think it makes such a wonderful contrast to Andy Garcia's performance in the first film, where he's all like glowering efficiency, and it's all like, it's very, very composed at all moments. And Pacino is a lot more sycophantic. He's glad-handing the high rollers, and he's kind of desperate, but he's also dangerous. I like Pacino a lot in this movie, and it came at a critical time for him to actually give a good performance in his career. His 2000s are rough.
Yeah, you got that right.
He's got like Gigli, or how do you pronounce the name of the movie? Gigli. Hated film. He's got Two for the Money in 88 Minutes, like these horrible crime thrillers that he was in. I saw 88 Minutes in Grauman's Chinese Theater in Hollywood the first time I visited. This beautiful, massive, well, sort of beautiful, massive movie palace on the inside. And I watched some shitty Heat wannabe with Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. That was so depressing.
Wait a second. 88 Minutes is the one with just Al Pacino. Righteous Kill is the one with the two of them.
And it's got 50 Cent 88 Minutes too. Is the one that has the real time 88 minute like second half, which is what really excited me, because I liked that idea, and the movie completely squanders it. It's garbage.
Yeah, he had it rough. Was he doing like theater too?
He's got like there's a forgotten adaptation of Merchant of Venice that he was in around that time.
I think he does a great job, and like he seems like a way more authentic casino owner than Terry Benedict, who is like a cartoon character.
He has a bit of like Rubin's energy.
Yeah.
When the two of them are talking, and Elliot Gould's like, "You're not going to throw me off this roof," and Pacino's like, "I don't want to."
Yeah.
I love it. It's so good.
Good stuff. But I wanted to talk about Rubin bringing together the gang, because the gang is like a bunch of good guys that are just best buds. They aren't just a bunch of professionals who did a job together and moved on with life. No. They have Christmas parties together. I guess they go on road trips together. They just are there for each other no matter what. I understand that the movie can't repeat the whole like arranging the team a third time, because they did it twice. Right. But it's the best part of the first two movies. Like, repeat the best part. Show us where they're at again. Like, that's so much fun to see like each of them as individuals, and you don't get that in this one. They just immediately go into it, and I understand the logic, but man, it's weird when they all just appear around Rubin's hospital bed like they aren't these ruthless, thieving bastards. They need to have a reason.
It's super weird too, because Rubin doesn't feel like the right character to position that way. It should be Saul.
Yeah, it should be Saul.
Saul, who was their mentor, who's older, who is beloved by everybody and respected by everybody in the other films. Not Rubin, who's kind of the outsider of the group.
Yeah, they love Saul. They all have mad respect for Saul.
To be fair, I love Elliot Gould in the first one. He might be my favorite character in Ocean's 11. Ooh, is Rubin.
Okay.
I love, it's nice in Chicago, right? Get in the goddamn house. I love that. It's so good.
You're still in the middle of the fucking desert. Spoiler alert, at the end of this discussion, we're going to do a Ocean's 11 tier list.
Nice.
So get ready for that. So I take it Rubin's an S tier for you.
I mean, on the one hand, I get why I would be all there for Rubin. If he went into a coma, I'd be like, no, Rubin, you're my favorite. But it also means that we are deprived of Elliot Gould for basically this entire movie, which is insane.
Yeah. And you're deprived of the fun getting the team together. It's just so weird that they're all, like, the movie just starts without any lead up, no build up.
This movie doesn't even really have a first act. The thing that happens next when they meet with Eddie Izzard and they talk about Banks Casino is so weird, because it feels like the second act of the movie, but it's like the third scene. It's the part of the movie where they explain what they need to do now that they've gotten ready to do the job, but they're also already doing it. I don't understand structurally what's supposed to be happening here. It doesn't work. It's bad.
They needed a reason to all be together before Rubin. be it like a steakhouse dinner, or like maybe they all invested in the casino or something, and that's why they have.
It was Ruben's birthday. They were all coming in. They were getting back together. It had been years since they'd seen each other. They're getting back together because Ruben's going to hold a big birthday to celebrate his new endeavor.
Yeah, they needed to all be visibly betrayed, because it's just so weird that they're just the patron saints of Ruben that are willing to avenge him.
Especially Danny, who is now Ruben's fixer, I guess.
You're telling me the amazing Yen is getting on a plane to go to Ruben's house when he goes into a coma, like a 70-year-old man? He's like, no, man, he's fucking 70. Like,
the other thing that Izzard represents for me is kind of how navel-gazing the franchise gets, which is something we've talked about with other franchise films this season, where they just become so obsessed with their own mythology. Why is Eddie Izzard in this movie? He's in the second one because he makes them a hologram Fabergé egg. That has nothing to do with what's happening in this movie. And I don't even like the second one that much. I don't want to be thinking about who Eddie Izzard is and trying to remember. And he's like critical to the exposition in the opening of this film. The same goes for Vincent Cassel. Why is he in this movie?
yeah.
It just makes things harder, not easier, to have him there.
Yeah, these movies are just so obsessed with themselves. But that's like what that's what a third movie usually is.
It's about.
Yeah.
Unless you've set up your entire series to be about one story from the beginning, like Lord of the Rings, or even like Star Wars pulls that off, right? Where it's about Vader's redemption by the third one.
Or Back to the Future. They did it pretty well.
Back to the Future does it okay.
So yeah, we got the whole gang back, and they're immediately up to hijinks. It's funny that like most of their planning and stuff they have to do is literally just getting jobs at the companies that provide shit for the bank casino.
Getting a job with the shuffle company, getting a job with the dice manufacturer.
Yeah, they just all have to get these shitty jobs in order to infiltrate, and they have to go above and beyond. It's not like in the first one where they just like dress up as a balloon delivery man. Like,
right.
In this one, it would be like, we have to go get a job at the balloon company or something.
How does Casey Affleck get the job in the dice factory?
I guess he just goes down to Ciudad Juarez and puts on a fake mustache and walks into the factory.
Oh, God. The fake mustaches. There are so many fake mustaches in this goddamn movie.
It's true. The Clooney one, the Brad Pitt one. Yeah, fake noses, too.
Got the fake nose, of course.
They're just having
I
fun.
want to talk a little bit more about the target. In this opening act explanation scene, we learn more about Al Pacino. We learn about his casino, the bank, and we meet some of the other key players there. This casino is completely fabricated. It's composited into the location shots in Vegas, and then all the interiors on sound stages.
It looks kind of like a DNA.
Yeah, like a helix,
like double helix,
like triple helix instead of double.
It definitely is not buildable. It looks so unbelievable.
It also, if you look at it on the strip, it looks too small.
Yeah, it looks really tiny.
It's much smaller than the other mega resorts.
Well, because they had to fit it where there's probably like a parking lot on the real strip.
Right.
Yeah, that's a major flaw in this movie, that it's a fake casino. I love the first movie because like I had been to Vegas, and then I see this movie where they're like robbing a real fucking casino, and it's so cool.
Everything here is pushed, though. Everything has to be heightened to the umpteenth degree. We have this insane casino that is the most luxurious. And then we have this crazy tracking system, the Greco player tracking system, which means that they can't fake wins in games because it will discover them. Compare that to just a fancy vault in the first one. They just have to raise the stakes.
It's funny, though, because I think this was right around the time that the Wynn casino was opened, and the Wynn casino does look a lot like this casino, like both the interior and even the exterior, like it's the same color. I feel like they were taking some inspiration from it, because I think Pacino also based the character around Steve Wynn, so they should have just filmed there. He's probably cool enough to like pretend that casino's, I don't know.
I mean, the Bellagio continues to let them film there, even though the Bellagio, Terry Benedict is not a good person.
Yeah,
these movies, I think, are critical to the Vegas transformation that we see in these movies.
Well, of course, I think these movies hate the Vegas that I was fond of, like the Excalibur and the Circus. These movies want it to be like the Sands and like the Tropicana. Yeah. They want it to be like 60s Vegas.
By the time you get here, but I'm just saying that like there could not have been a better advertisement for the Bellagio than Ocean's 11.
That's true.
Vegas's continued popularity and exponential growth and transformation, I think, is as much due to these movies as anything.
Yeah.
These movies, poker being a big thing on television in the early 2000s, the World Series of Poker
Yeah.
making a big splash. Like, Vegas was back in a big way.
Totally. Yeah. Also, the population there exploded too, so it just became a much bigger city.
Yeah.
This is like a really distinct distillation of like right before the recession, which like wrecked Vegas, especially
Vegas, all those
the
houses.
housing market in Vegas was fucked after the recession. It was really, probably is still really bad, to be honest.
The other thing that I want to call out from this sequence, one thing to note, because it's going to come back in themes, and then an actress I want to mention. First is that this movie has a very specific point of view, which is this very anti-corporate point of view. They specifically paint Bank as being someone who's like operating the casino in a corporate way, and that is somehow less desirable than when it was run by mobsters. But I mean, it's even there in his name. His name is literally Bank.
Right.
Like, that is where this movie is targeting. And working for a bank is Ellen Barkin, who we should also talk about at some point, because she's doing a lot in this movie. I don't know if it's good.
She's the only female character in the entire movie,
Right.
which is kind of crazy, especially a film series that had Julia Roberts and Catherine Zeta-Jones. But I appreciate that they hired like a woman who's over 50 years old to be like the hot lady in the movie. That's pretty cool.
She was originally going to be in Ocean's 12, but as that film was taking shape, they cut her character from it. And so then they brought her back for this one and found her a role to play here.
Yeah. And she's fun. She does a good job. She's a welcome addition to the Ocean's canon.
I find this character pretty trying.
Yeah.
She kind of feels like she's hard done by the story.
A little bit.
Pushed around by forces beyond her control constantly.
Yeah. But I'm just...
And not in a fun way.
I'm just like, you know what? At this point for me, it's like every character is like just scenery. Like... because they all, like you said, they are all just, they don't care that much. They're just like having a good time. I don't know. I liked watching her. That's what I'm boiling this down to. Yes, a lot of bad things happen to her, and she doesn't get any resolution.
Good performance, maybe not a great character.
Right, exactly. So yeah, should we move on to the crew doing their things?
Yeah, everybody's got a job. Everybody's got their own job.
You got Basher and the drill. Really lame storyline that they have to buy an old drill, and Basher's just bitching about it. And then Benedict gets involved because they have to buy another drill.
Which never makes any sense to me. It feels really manufactured. Everything that happens with this drill.
Yeah, it's super lame. They should have cut the entire storyline. They should have just had Basher like flip a switch at the end and cause an earthquake.
Just save him for the final, for the bit where he impersonates the stunt driver. They need somebody who hasn't been part of the crew or something.
Yeah.
You just don't have him in the rest of the movie. I don't know.
So then you have Casey Affleck and Juarez working at a dice factory. I liked this. I thought it was pretty fun.
I think it's probably problematic, but I also do kind of like this section of the story.
Why is it problematic? Because he got a job in a Mexican factory?
Because they like the only way that the indigenous Mexican workers can get better conditions, fair pay, is if an American comes down there and inspires them to organize.
That's insane.
There's something
It
a
just
little
so
problematic
happened that
about
he was the guy to do it. That's all it is.
I do like that he just gets so carried away with it.
Yeah,
Like,
they get
that's
really,
funny.
him and both
And
Virgil
Scott
and
Conn.
Turk both get really into it.
Yeah.
And it's fun, and he's like bonding with the workers. I thought it was great.
He also has the best of the fake mustaches, in my opinion. I like his mustache quite
He
a bit.
does. But yeah, they definitely devote like 5 scenes to this whole thing, and it's probably the most interesting one because every time it cuts back, it's escalated. They never show what actually happened. They just show like the next stage of the situation.
They're throwing Molotov cocktails
Yeah.
over the picket fence. This is also really ties into the anti-corporate
Yeah.
themes of this movie, very much so.
Totally. And it's fun. It's like if you're going to have them get jobs at other companies, you might as well go crazy with it like this one. The other people getting jobs is lame. Like Livingston gets a job at the Shuffle company, and like there's a 2-second scene where he does a job interview, and that's kind of it. He's like electrocuting himself to pass the polygraph test. But this was fun. Then there's torturing the reviewer, the 5 Diamond Award guy. Also a fun little subplot that they want to get rid of.
Yeah.
They want to make sure Banks gets a terrible review, so they find out who the reviewer is going to be for the 5 Diamond Award, and they start just ruining his life. They ruin his entire vacation.
This stuff is like genuinely upsetting, seeing what happens to this guy. It's classic that guy character actor David Paymer playing the reviewer, and they put him through the ringer, and I feel really bad for him.
They feel bad for him too. They mention, oh, it's a shame what we're gonna have to do to this guy. Because they cover his bed in bugs, and they kick him out of the hotel.
He's got like hives all over his face, and he's sleeping in a chair.
They don't let him eat at the one restaurant that he really wanted to eat at, and then he gets sick from the other poisoning. One. Yeah.
They basically treat him like he was a bully from like a Disney movie in the 90s. You know, it's like Parent Trap, but he's just an innocent guy.
They give him $11 million at the end, so I think he would have taken it, even if he hadn't actually acquiesced to the deal.
I like it when Carl Reiner's like, I wouldn't do it for 10, but I'd do it for 11.
Yeah. But yeah, they have Carl Reiner playing the fake out. They convinced Banks that Reiner is the actual inspector, and he's like this British man. Reiner has a hairpiece on. It's pretty funny.
R.I.P. Carl Reiner.
Yeah, he's
been
great.
About a year to the day. And
it is cool that the gang has like a multi-generational element. It's pretty fun that like you've got a guy born in the 20s, you've got a guy born in like the later 30s in Elliot Gould, and then I guess it's kind of missing that
Clooney, and then
you have Bernie Mac born in the 50s, and then like your guy's born in the 60s like Clooney, and then your Gen X's, and then Yen is like really young. He's like almost our age.
You know what I'm realizing as we're going through these? One of the reasons the Basher subplot with the drill is so lame is that it feels like a rehash of 11. Everybody else is getting something different to do.
Yeah.
The Casey Affleck is like completely different than the first movie, where he's playing, you know, a person who's there to annoy people, to distract them. And then like Carl Reiner getting to play a very different character than the Lyman Zerga character he plays in the first one. You know, they're getting different stuff to do.
Well, and like Basher just has more interesting stuff in his storyline with like stealing the pinch in the first movie. Like that's a great little sequence. Right. And then he's even got like really cool cinematography. There's the scene where he's like, this is in 11. He's like looking at the detonators or whatever, and he's watching Rubin's casino get destroyed on live TV, but he's got a view of the thing getting destroyed, and you just see it go down behind him. It's so good.
That's a great shot.
But yeah, in this one, he's just like in a basement, and that's pretty much it. It's really lame. I don't know why we've talked about the drills so much. I want to move on from the drill.
I don't know. It sucks. I don't like the drill.
Yeah. Let's talk about Damon.
Yeah, Damon. I actually really like the direction they take the Linus character in 12 and 13. In the first one, he's the heir apparent. You've got Pitt and Clooney as these established older stars. And then in 2001, you've got Damon, who's coming hot off of his 90s. He's just landed Bourne Identity that's releasing the same year. He's this really exciting young star. And so he's positioned as kind of like their protege. But in 12 and 13, he's like this insufferable, sniveling little dweeb. And I kind of really like that. I think that's really funny. I really appreciate Damon being willing to make fun of himself and his persona.
Yeah, it's funny. It's really funny in 12. He's just so
12
awkward.
Is where it's best.
Yeah. It's good. And there's shades of that in the first movie. It's funny that like they took him in that direction.
Because they don't trust him, and he like goes into the California Institute after they've stolen the pinch.
Yeah. And it's like instead of growing up, he just got worse in the sequels, which is really funny.
I don't love the stuff with the nose, the Pembridge character, the aphrodisiac that's
pretty bad. The aphrodisiac.
The whole thing is weird.
What do they call it? I can't remember.
The Gilroy.
The Gilroy. Oh my god, so dumb.
Some fun facts. The sequence of him in London talking about the Greco. They got that where it's sort of like a Bourne almost parody because he's barking into a phone. He's like, "Oh, my covers have been blown" and stuff like that.
Right.
They literally filmed that while he was in London filming Bourne Ultimatum.
That's cool. That's fun. All right, there's 2 more. Or no, there's 4 more. Jesus.
Every guy in the crew has a different subplot.
You have something to talk about with Yen and how Yen jumps around in an elevator shaft because he pretends to be a high roller. He's basically doing the Lyman Zerga from the first movie, but he's like this Chinese high roller. And then he's got to infiltrate. I don't even remember why he has to infiltrate the elevators, but they're
trying to figure out how to get up to the diamonds.
Yeah, whatever. It doesn't matter. He does a quick little jumping around in the elevators, and it's dangerous.
And the movie, because of like the tone that it has to set, this really light and frothy tone, can't milk this sequence for what it should be. You have these elevators zipping around, and Soderbergh is using CGI to make them miss Yen by inches, and yet it's like over in 30 seconds and never feels dangerous. This is the point of the movie that should be exciting, and it's not. It's tedious.
Yeah, it's true.
I think it's a pretty good case study in sort of, these were never an action franchise, but when you have a setup like that, compare that to him breaking out of the lockbox inside the vault in the first movie.
Yeah, when he has to make the jump from the lockbox to the shelf, and it's so tense.
Which is suspenseful and exciting, and this is not. This is nothing.
Yeah.
This is visual candy.
It reminded me a lot of the really stupid, but some people love it, scene in 12 when Vincent Cassel does his laser dance.
I
Which
kind of like
is
the
so
laser dance.
stupid, but also fun to watch. But this is like a bad version of
That at least is like long and intricate in a way that this is like perfunctory.
Right.
They're like, I don't even know why they even bothered showing the elevator shaft.
Yeah, it was silly. This is what I'm most intrigued to talk about. Danny and Rusty Danny doesn't
What?
do anything in this movie. He does absolutely zero. He just sits in a hotel room the whole time, just like
He
talking
tells
to people.
other people what to do. Yeah.
Yeah. In the first movie, he was in the vault. He did everything.
He rappelled down the elevator shaft.
Not to mention, like, he just had a lot going on with Julia Roberts and Benedict. And he gets a little bit of that here, but the scenes between him and Pacino are so staid. They're like the worst Pacino scenes.
Yeah, mostly because Pacino respects him, which is an interesting choice for the villain, but it deflates a lot of the drama.
Yeah.
Where Pacino's like, listen, I did what I did. I know you're a serious guy, but I did what I did, so do your worst.
Right. It's so strange. But yeah, then there's all these scenes with just Danny and Rusty like chilling out, which I actually enjoy. They're fun. They watch Oprah. I like that. It's like
I fucking hate the
they're gonna
Oprah
goof
scene.
around. Like that's what this movie is. It's like basically a big goof. So and that's what the people want. They want to see Clooney and Rusty watching Oprah together.
No, I want the scene between Danny and Tess in the restaurant in the first movie. A scene with stakes and drama and character.
I don't know if you're the target audience then. I think there's a certain subset of people in the world that want to watch Clooney and Brad have a
Just
fun little
chilling,
scene where
watching
they
Oprah.
cry to Oprah. People love that shit.
I will say the callback when Andy Garcia goes on Oprah at the end
Yeah.
is one of the best jokes in the movie.
That was funny. Yeah, and Brad Pitt does one fun scene where he's like the earthquake guy, but again, totally underused compared to Ocean's 11, where he wears like so many hats and has so many great scenes and lines. And this, I don't know, it really does seem like a hangout.
They just kind of mumble and stroll their way through this movie.
Yeah.
And do nothing to affect the story in any way.
It's like they were like, listen, Steven, we'll do it, but like, don't make us do any crazy shit.
We're going to be pretty hungover.
We're going to just be chilling. Like, can we like at least 70% of our scenes be in a hotel room and we'll just look really good? We promise we'll look great.
We'll look great. We'll come in at noon and we'll leave at like 4. How's that sound?
It's really what it seems like. And they're like, great. Yeah, no one cares. They just want to see you guys. It's fine. We'll just have a funny scene with Oprah. It'll be great. Bernie Mac, also lame. He does one good scene where he sells Benedict on the machines.
Yeah, with his domino game.
But then Bank swoops in. Yeah, but it's just a reminiscent of, do you use moisturizer? I love moisturizer. Like one of the greatest scenes of all time. Right. When he cons the guy in Ocean's 11 to buy the vans.
Everyone's established now. So they all have to have their own thing to do, but that stuff has to be worked into all the other stage setting the movie has to do. So there just isn't enough room for these characters to shine, to get real meat to chew on. They get these box checky perfunctory bits that are often lightly amusing or mildly entertaining, and they're never genius.
You almost wish in an alternate universe this wouldn't have worked because no one would have wanted to see this, but like if he had just made a new set of characters, like imagine
Logan
Clooney,
Lucky.
Well, not like to that.
Which
level.
I love.
Hold on. Not
Okay.
a new world, not a NASCAR shit. Fuck that shit. No, just like you get Clooney and Brad, but then they get 9 new guys, new actors, guys and girls to be their crew in new movies. That could have been cool. Like, I don't care that much about seeing Livingston again. You need to have Clooney and you need Brad because it's Rusty. You got to have Rusty. But yeah, what if they had made Ocean's 12 with 10 new fun characters to explore? You know? It would have been kind of interesting.
Probably would have been better.
Yeah, it wouldn't have made as much money, though. I didn't like Logan Lucky very much, by the way.
You didn't like Logan Lucky. I really like Logan Lucky. I expected it the first time I saw it to be more like Ocean's 11, and it's nothing like it. It's a very, very different movie. But the second time I saw it, I really got on its wavelength, and I think it's another excellent, very watchable, enjoyable film from Soderbergh that has a lot more going on at first than it seems like it should.
I'm a big Magic Mike fan. Love that movie. Really fun.
Yeah. Another great example.
Maybe
of
Channing should be added to our Ocean's list of actors.
Yeah, he would actually be a good addition.
All right.
Daniel Craig.
And
Adam Driver, too, if we're going to do parts of the Logan Lucky. Matthew McConaughey? You kidding me?
Yeah. No, see it? This is like our second Oceans with new characters. It would have been great. New expertises. You want to talk about Andy?
Yeah. I mean, I'm an Andy Garcia stan. We've talked about it. I think he's really good in a couple scenes of this movie in sort of surprising ways, particularly the expo scene when Bernie Mac and he team up to convince Pacino to put the dominoes in the casino.
Yeah, the one I was talking about.
He's a good actor playing a bad actor, and that can be really hard to do and do convincingly. And I think he walks that line perfectly in that scene where he's just a little too stilted in a way that seems like it, like you just catch it. But it's not enough to break the verisimilitude of the scene to make you think Pacino would question what he was doing. I'm impressed with Garcia. I think he's an underrated actor.
Yeah, it's pretty funny when he barges in and he's like, "I'll put them in my casino in Mississippi," and like it's just so
he's wearing his ascot.
So ridiculous. But
let's lock this up right now. Yeah. Exclusive rights.
God. You'd think Bank wouldn't fall for something that obvious. That is such a
but he's a megalomaniac.
Such a bad
He's
move.
An egoist.
Was there anything else you wanted to say about Andy?
So I like him being this weird like audience surrogate that they cut to for reaction shots during the heist. And I learned after the fact that all of those shots were filmed completely out of context. They just put him on that set and Soderbergh's like, just give me a bunch of different reactions. I don't know how I'm going to use them yet, but we'll cut them in the edit when it makes sense.
That's pretty fun. So all of this that we just talked about is leading up to the opening night, because this whole plot is that they're going to ruin the opening of this new hotel. They're going to make it so all the games are rigged to lose hundreds of millions of dollars in minutes so that everyone wins at once. They're also going to ruin the guy's life that's reviewing the hotel, who he's getting fucked over by the crew. We talked about it, and they are hoping to get Banks like a terrible review. But then they're also being tasked by Benedict to literally steal the diamonds that are the stand-in awards. It's the 5 Diamond Awards, and Banks buys himself a little present each time he wins the 5 Diamond Award. He buys himself a 5 diamond necklace that he has in a really secure vault, and the job, Benedict is like, you're going to steal those diamonds. It's later revealed that he wants them for himself.
Most of the tension of the second act is them being like, but we can't steal the diamonds, and Andy Garcia being, but you have to steal the diamonds.
Yeah, he threatens to kill them if they don't steal the diamonds. And I'm like, wouldn't you have killed them already for like fucking up your entire life? Come on. So yeah, it all culminates in this opening night where they're going to do all of this. They're just going to ruin Banks's life. And a couple fun things happen. There's Don Cheadle doing a con.
Finally getting to drop that really bad Cockney accent that he could never pull off.
Yep. Banks gets all of the pictures of the gang sent to him. Cheadle's got to come in while Virgil hacks the system and changes all of their faces. And he dresses up as the stunt man who's going to do the big stunt, which we never saw. I was kind of bummed that we never actually saw the stunt go down. I guess it got canceled because of the earthquake. But he's got a great outfit. He's in an American flag jumpsuit, and he's got a tooth tattoo.
A flag stamped on his teeth.
Yeah, pretty cool. So that's a fun bit. And then there's the earthquake that they need to shut down the computer. It's very reminiscent of the first movie.
The earthquake that they need to lure Pacino down into the control room so that they can use his phone to shut down the computer?
Right. And then they also use the earthquake to evacuate all of the gamblers out so that they don't keep gambling. Couldn't they have killed a lot of people with this earthquake? Super dangerous.
Literally after the fact, they're like, wow, that went way longer and harder than we thought it was going to.
Also, the pinch in the first movie probably killed a couple hospital patients.
Probably did.
Whatever.
Jesus. No, they got emergency power. They got backup generators.
Like, if there's any inkling that Danny Ocean did that pinch, he's like going to like ADX Florence prison. He's going to maximum federal prison for the rest of his life. He's going to be sitting next to the Unabomber. It's like, you knocked out the power in an entire city. You're done.
You are a domestic terrorist.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the montage, the climax, the 3 minutes to bankruptcy. They buy themselves 3 minutes when the Greco game detection system is offline, and they can trigger all of their rigged games, and everybody just wins millions of dollars.
Yeah.
I like this sequence. This is classic Soderbergh, just filling it with so much energy and joy and life in the pace, in the cinematography, in the edit. It's great.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's fun to have all these things finally pay off. I kind of wish there was a little bit more excitement to the whole thing. Like, you don't see a lot of gamblers like freaking out that they're winning. It just kind of glosses over the whole wide, and like it has all the numbers of them that they're winning, but like there's not a lot of like, oh my god, I won. There's that one slot machine lady who freaks out, but then you don't really get like individual gamblers after that, which was kind of a bummer. But yeah, it's the most insane plan I've ever seen in a heist movie. It is so vulnerable and makes no sense, but it's still a good time. There's also Linus upstairs with the diamonds and with the girl. He's wooing her with his stupid aphrodisiac, and it's just so convoluted what happens up there in the throne room or whatever.
Yeah, it's revealed that the FBI agent that's been tracking them is actually his dad, which is just a repeat reveal from the last movie. I don't know why they did that twice. And then they don't switch out the diamonds. They have fake diamonds, but they tell Benedict that they did, so that Vincent Cassel steals the diamonds from him, but then they actually just blow the vault through the roof.
So unnecessary. You're right. There's no reason for Vincent Cassel to be in the movie. He adds nothing. Absolutely nothing.
And you have to do the work of like then explaining who he is, and the audience has to remember why it matters that this guy is there throughout the movie. And then to add to that, because they want to have this Benedict double cross, they have to literally say out loud to Benedict, but also to the audience, we can't blow the roof. And then they blow the roof.
Yeah.
And it's not one of those fun moments where the movie pulls a con on you. It's one of those moments where the movie cheats.
Right.
The movie set up the parameters, and we wanted to see how they were going to get around them. And then the movie says, you know what? Actually, those parameters weren't real.
Yeah. That does... I'm going to talk about Ocean's 11 one more time, because I know you just recently watched it. And it reminds me of this. Why in Ocean's 11 does Danny pretend that he's not going to be able to get into the vault? He like tricks Linus. It's one of the weirdest scenes ever.
I have an answer for that. And the movie even explains it as much, but it kind of throws it away. Danny and Rusty love pulling cons so much that they decide to con their own crew for the shits of it.
That's so
just
insane.
Because they like pulling cons.
So insane.
Because that's what makes it fun for them.
Yeah, so maybe we're bringing a bit of that to the table here. That like, they're just conning everyone. It's really, that always baffled me. I watched that movie like 20 times, and I'm like, why did they do this?
It's just for that moment where he can pop down the elevator door and be like, guess what, I'm here, motherfucker.
Yeah, it's so stupid. But it works. So they do it. They accomplish their goal. They ruin banks. They get away with the diamonds, and all the gamblers get away with the money. And Ruben is back. He shows up at the casino with a smile on his face, and
wearing his old pleated shirt.
Friendship prevails. these buddies, these career criminals are just such good buds that they pulled off this spectacular job.
And they stand watching fireworks in a callback to the fountain at the Bellagio that has none of the poetry or satisfaction of that shot.
Nope, classic sequel. And then it ends with our three main celebs. It's Clooney, Brad, and Damon. And in this last scene, Damon finally exhibits a little bit of cool factor when he finally leaves. And Clooney and Brad he just says, like, see you when I see ya. And it's so unlike Linus has been in the other movies that Clooney and Brad are impressed. It's a good way to end it. It's like finally Linus got with it a little bit. Brad gives a coin to the beleaguered hotel reviewer guy whose life has also been ruined, but he gets $11 million at the airport. And that's the end of the Ocean's 11 trilogy. That's how it ends. It's a fun little ending punctuation. I won. You want to talk about some other stuff in the movie?
Yeah, I got two other things I definitely want to bring up. The first is this film's cinematography, which for my money is the single best element of the movie. Like I said up top, Soderbergh shot this himself. He's using the nom de plume Peter Andrews, but he was the DP on the film. And he is really pushing some interesting stylistic elements in this movie that you just don't see in major blockbuster films, ever. There's obviously the split screen stuff, there's double exposure, but the thing that I really love is the way he uses colors. This has always been one of Soderbergh's strengths, but he does these things where he crushes the colors. So detail gets lost in a wash of color, sort of like an overexposed image where it's really bright and you lose details in white, except he'll do it with blue or red. And it's always very emotionally affecting. Yeah. And he uses it so cleverly. He does it in the early films too, but this is the one where he's really, really pushing it, where there are scenes that are almost monochromatic the way he films them.
Yeah, it's really pretty and different. It's different for a majority of movies that are in the same kind of world of like adult thrillers. Like it's really fun to watch and pretty.
He's just, he has an aesthetic that is non-literal, that he is employing in a really interesting and exciting way. It's just better than if this movie had been shot conventionally. It's one of the real weaknesses of Ocean's 8. I don't know if you've seen that.
No,
the movie has no style.
Right.
It's very flat. It's very as is.
Yeah. And
that's something that's really missing. It's something Soderbergh brought to it that the director of that film, Gary Ross, did not.
Yeah. No, I couldn't bring myself to watch that film.
The other thing we have to acknowledge that we've talked about a little bit is the absence of Julia Roberts in this movie. And Catherine Zeta-Jones, but
huge.
Mostly Julia Roberts.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate.
I think the reason the Danny character is so milquetoast in this movie is because of that. Because in both of the two previous films, that relationship is the core relationship in the film.
Yeah.
And it's just gone from this one.
Yeah.
And Danny has nothing to do without it.
It's true. She's his better half. He needs her to succeed.
Roberts is so good in both of those movies, particularly the first one.
Yeah. I mean, it's just overstuffed, though. There wasn't anything for them to do. So it's probably better that they're not here, because where would they have been in this movie otherwise? They would have been like with Ruben at the hospital.
And that's exactly the reason they didn't take the part. They both turned it down specifically because they're like, there's too much going on. We won't have enough to do. We don't want to do this.
Yeah. They didn't want to just hang out with Clooney at the hotel room. Okay. I want to play our quick game of Ocean's members tier lists. Are you familiar with how to do a tier list?
Yeah. You got S tier,
A tier. Yeah. S is best.
tier.
Then there's A, B, C, D, and F.
So are we trying to rank them in a tier list on like how good they are for the crew? Like how essential they are?
Whatever your personal opinion is. Your personal tier list. I'll start with Danny. Danny is a B tier member of the crew.
I 100% agree.
Yeah, he's great, but you're right. He's totally shitty without Tess. And it kind of exposes him that he's a man that needs a mission. And like Ruben isn't a good enough mission for him.
Rusty does all the managerial work anyway. Danny's just a figurehead. He might even be B tier in the first two movies. He might be C tier in this movie.
I'd put him A tier in the first movie. We can't get into that with all of these guys, but
okay, you're right.
In this,
I like
in all
B-tier
three,
for
I'd say B tier, mostly because this movie just drags him down. Okay, Frank Catton. We're going in order of introduction in 11. Frank, I think, is an A tier. He brings a lot of personality to the crew. And I feel like he's, especially for a guy that's just like a card dealer, he's really versatile. He doesn't really do any of the physical stuff, but he's really good at greasing whoever needs to be greased.
He's the second best one at pulling off cons,
Yeah.
other than Saul in the movies.
Yeah. He's like
I like A tier for Frank.
secondary con man. Okay, Rusty. S tier. Come on. Rusty is the man. He's just the coolest. You can't beat Rusty.
There would be no crew without Rusty.
Yeah.
Rusty's the guy.
All right, Ruben. You told me you were a really big fan of Ruben. I gave him A tier. I love him too.
I love Ruben because he's the personality. You know?
He's the Vegas.
Danny's all dry wit. Rusty barely speaks. Ruben is the glue. Mostly because he's the money, but also because he's the guy who gets Damon on the team. Because he's literally incapacitated for this entire movie and the team functions without him, I will agree to A tier, not S tier.
A tier.
But
Yeah. Okay.
Elliot Gould, man. I love me Elliot Gould.
Virgil, played by Casey Affleck, I believe. I gave him A. I think he's great. He's always
the superior of the two twins.
Yeah. I mean, Turk kind of sucks. Turk is like possibly C tier. Scott Conn. He's pretty bad.
But here's the thing: is he is often as much of a impediment to the team as a help to them.
That is true. But you kind of admire that in a way.
I like Casey Affleck's performances in these movies, but Virgil is not somebody. He's like my second call for a wheelman.
True. Okay, so you're giving them both B.
I'll give Turk C.
Okay.
Turk is brings out the worst in Virgil. At least Virgil has some skills.
Got it. Okay, we have 5 more. Livingston. I gave Livingston C tier. I don't like Livingston very much, mostly because of the movie Waitress. I think
fair.
He's just so nervous. I'm like, maybe don't do this if you're so nervous about it.
Yeah, but he is essential. He does all like the tech stuff.
Well, except in this movie when he gets replaced by Virgil.
For some Photoshop, but like when they
live
the actual
Photoshop hack. Come on, that's pretty good.
He's like, inserting the video of the fake vault in the first one. You gotta at least give him B. I think he's too essential to give any less than B.
All right, we'll agree to disagree. Basher, also C tier. Basher kind of sucks. He's got a terrible accent. He just complains a lot, usually.
He complains all the time.
I don't know. I don't really like Basher that much either.
My favorite Basher moment in the entire series is the first time we meet him when Pitt's like, what can you put together with the stuff I just slipped you? And he creates the bomb, and then he's just like, they weren't expecting that shit!
Yeah, that's pretty fun. And I like it. I like Basher a lot more in 11 than I do in 12 and 13.
He's a little bit like Livingston, where he has a skill set that nobody else has, but I feel like, physical engineering is less specialized than computer engineering.
Really? I disagree. I think they could go to Silicon Valley and find anyone.
I'm just saying that, like, not only do the twins do the Photoshop, but they also run the drill later too. So like, what is Basher bringing to the table? I'm not sure.
It's true. So then you have Amazing Yen, who I'm putting D tier, man. This guy, he's just so cocky. He's younger than Linus, yet he acts like he's hot shit. I don't know. He also kind of turns into an asshole in the second movie.
He really does, which I actually kind of love. But he is the list for this man.
Yeah, I mean, they really need him. I just would never hang out with him ever. Like, he does not really fit into this like fake Rat Pack situation they've got going.
He is an interesting fit.
He's an outsider though, so I can't be too harsh on him. But if I had to lose one member, if it had to be Ocean's 10, I'm losing Amazing Yen.
Before Turk is just an extra body when you need somebody to be working at the restaurant.
That's true, but I like the interplay between Virgil and Turk. Like, that makes it fun. So, all right, then you got Saul, who is clearly an S tier.
He's clearly S tier.
I mean, nothing else
the OG.
needs to be said. And then you got Linus. I like Linus. I'm giving him A tier. He's really like, ambitious. He wants to do a good job. He is annoying. But you kind of need that. Otherwise, these guys would be too cool for school. Especially, like, the main guys. Like, you need him to balance out Danny and Rusty.
I buy that.
Yeah. So that's our Ocean's 11 tier list.
So S tier is Saul and Rusty,
Saul and Rusty.
but maybe not Rusty for me. It's mostly to Saul.
Yeah.
Saul is undisputed champion of Ocean's crew.
Absolutely. I can live with that.
Yeah, me too.
All right, let's get into the legacy of Ocean's 13.
Box office. This film had a budget of $85 million. That's low. Compare that to, all these other big blockbuster films we talked about that are in the high 100s to 200 to $300 million. And given the caliber of the talent and the fact that you have these really massive, impressive sets and, these big CGI shots of Las Vegas, it's really impressive that they kept the budget low. And part of that was that everyone took pay cuts.
Oh, okay.
It's part of being an ensemble film that everybody's like, we'll take less money for this so we can all be together and hang out.
And they still get millions of dollars.
They still get millions of dollars. I'm not feeling bad for them. It opened on June 8th in first place to $36 million. That was a dip from Ocean's 12.
Did you see it in theaters, by the way?
I did, yeah.
Okay. I saw it on like an airplane.
Ugh.
For such a big fan of the first movie, like I really did not. I didn't see 12 in theaters either. I just didn't care.
It wound up grossing $117 million domestically, which is the lowest of the franchise, including Ocean's 8.
Not bad though.
But $312 million worldwide, which is second lowest above 8. So, it's the nail in the coffin, as it were, it seemed like, for the franchise, spin-offs notwithstanding.
Yeah.
And yet it still made plenty of money, particularly since its budget was lower than your average blockbuster.
I see that there was talk of a sequel.
There was, as the film was being released on the press circuit, they kept talking it up.
Ugh.
I think they thought the movie was going to be a bigger hit than it was. And the whole thing was that Soderbergh would be like, I just have this vision of Danny in Paris.
Oh my God. No, it's done. It's over. And also Bernie Mac died.
That was a big reason they've said why they didn't pursue a sequel.
Very sad that he died.
He died the next year. And
yeah,
it
that's
was
too
very sad.
bad. But yeah, I'm glad it ended here. Ocean's 14 would have been overkill.
The numbers are just getting ridiculous at that point.
Let's get into themes, including 2007 technology. I mean, there was lots of it in this movie.
You gotta talk to me about that gold phone.
Yeah, that was a cool phone. It was, with the touch buttons.
The minute he opens it up and it's not a smartphone, you're like, oh right, 2007.
Yeah, 2007.
He's like,
baby.
This is the newest phone. It hasn't even come off the production line yet. Oh right, it's still a clunky piece of shit.
Yep. And there were like a couple monitors that they were watching things on that were like just pre LCD screens being super cheap. So they're just like these clunky ass monitors.
How about them talking about exobytes?
Oh yeah, exobytes.
And having to explain that to the audience.
That was funny. Yeah, not anything stuck out that hard though.
I bet that something like the Greco software actually exists now and is employed in casinos. But at the time probably wasn't possible.
Yeah, like a supercomputer that can analyze people's faces for motion.
Yeah, that uses biometric data to track play patterns.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. But let's talk about themes of the movie, specifically relating to the year 2007.
I felt bad about half-assing the themes for Juno, so I really tried to put some thought into it this time. We've talked about the anti-corporate elements of the film. I think that's really interesting to unpack for two reasons. One, it is very nearly prescient of the post-crash culture that's coming in a few years. I think like Occupy Wall Street and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That are just around the corner but don't exist yet. Except with the key difference being that all the people who are making money off of the house already had money.
Yeah, they're all high rollers.
They were already rich enough to be at the casino on opening night. Literally, like the high rollers they recruit to help break bank are whales.
Right.
They talk about that. They're tired of losing. They want to win. These millionaires. So there's something slightly odd about that. But it does fit, to my mind, a little bit with the idea of institutional corruption, because there's this sense of sticking it to the man. It's not about who deserves it, but it is about who doesn't deserve it.
Right.
Now, it isn't an exact match because we do actually have institutions like the FBI in this movie that aren't really corrupt. But there is that similar sensibility of like the underdog taking back the power from those who are abusing it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess one other theme I could think of is just what we were talking about earlier, like that passing of the torch from the 20th century into the 21st century, which we've seen
Sure.
a little bit in some of the other movies, just like time kind of marching forward and leaving behind that analog world, going into a digital one.
In 2001, it's all about embracing the future. By 2007, they're like, oh God, bring us back to the 60s.
Yeah. There's that scene at the Bellagio where they're like, they used to be smaller, but they seemed bigger. And I'm like, you guys aren't that old. Like you're not like Frank Sinatra's age. What is that? Like, but they're so wistful for that old era of Vegas, which by all accounts, like was really bad. Like mobsters and cigarettes everywhere. Like, I don't know. I feel like I wouldn't have had a great time.
Sleazy and filthy and slightly dangerous.
Yeah.
And cheap. Cheap is the big thing that changed.
I think we'll have to keep a lookout though for that. Oh, that's the theme. I forgot that we had that as a theme, that nobody wants to be in 2007. What movie did we have that for?
I mean, it's always there with like the Quagmire films, right? Where
No,
you're, like,
but we
stuck
specifically talked about this, how like in one of the movies we talked about, it's like 2007 sucks. It was like Transformers or one of those movies we talked about how like 2007 in as it's being represented on film at the time is like nobody wants to be there. They want to be elsewhere, either in the distant past or maybe the distant future. I don't know. I really want to remember what movie we were talking about. We definitely had a guest with us.
Yeah. Well, we said specifically that phrase because I do remember that.
Yeah. So that's what I'll bring to the table.
The other one I wanted to talk about is technology. I want to contrast the way technology has been presented in the films of this season with technology in the 1990 season.
Okay.
The ones that really stick out to me from that season are films like Back to the Future or Edward Scissorhands, where technology is about invention. It's about the wondrous and crazy things that you can make.
Mm-hmm.
In 2007, technology is all about manipulation. It's not about innovation. It's about control. Whether it's a movie like Perfume, where we're talking about ancient technology used to control lives of others, and Bourne Ultimatum, with spying with technology, even something like Sunshine, where you're trying to manipulate your environment with technology. It's not like they spend a little time talking about the invention of the bomb, but that's not really what the technology is focused on.
You're using it to get some shit done.
Grindhouse, Transformers, like it's been weirdly prevalent that technology is not this wondrous inventive thing anymore. It is slightly ominous.
Yeah.
Even in this movie, the technology exists to control, to manipulate.
Right. Yeah.
Not to empower.
That's fair. Well, we've certainly gone further and further down that road in the 14 years since 2007. Everyone's
definitely
people used to be so excited about technology, and now everyone's just terrified of it. So I think we did Ocean's 13 justice. Do you?
Yeah, we rambled a little bit, but the movie's a little rambly.
Yeah,
it's a little freeform.
Do you recall what movie we're doing next week?
Next week we're gonna do Stardust. Oh, Ben favorite, Neil Gaiman.
Stardust, man, that's one that I never was trying to watch, but I will for the podcast.
Hey, you know what? We're going from a surprisingly good Pacino role when it looked like he was over the hill to a surprisingly good De Niro role when it looked like he was over the hill.
Hey, there you go. I'm looking it up right now. You can watch Stardust on Netflix. Everyone's got Netflix. So please watch it in anticipation for our episode.
And if you haven't seen it, it's lovely. You'll have a great time.
I'm excited. Cool. Well, once again, please, if you enjoyed this episode on Ocean's 13, give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on social media at BttM Pod, or send us an email, bttmpod@gmail.com. We're really looking forward to some emails, some fan engagement, and yeah, just keep the BttM dream alive here.
Thanks to Andy Gagnon for our music and Jackie Saltzman for our artwork.
Yes, and that's pretty much all we got. For Back to the Movies, this has been Nat.
And I'm Ben, and we'll see you next week when we go back to the movies.
You got any topics for the outro?
We should do a heist.
No.